Because when I've used to have like hay bales on the shoulder, carrying the feed and stuff, and it's a case of you knew you had to carry that over the rough ground, put out the 20 kilogram bag of feed and stuff, working with animals. Because if you didn't, they didn't get fed, and there's a chance that they could be hurt, etc. How do you work with somebody to actually not just use like the disco muscles, but to actually build a system and make them realize that when they're tired, when they're fatiguing, to learn from that fatigue, to learn from that stress, like you mentioned in the book, and actually use that as a point of growth, a point of understanding yourself so you become a better person and a better athlete for the next session? Is there a way to understand fatigue, etc.?
Yeah, of course. So fatigue has an accumulation principle where it comes at you from all sorts of angles, whether you've got a shit night's sleep or poor feed or the baby's kept you up all night, whatever that looks like. Fatigue comes at you from all sorts of angles. So you've got to manage that and look after and listen to your body. But in order to adapt in any situation, first and foremost, whether that's as a farmer or as a soldier, is understanding your why at the start and understand exactly what that athlete wants. If that's to move hay bales, then that's how we train. And predominantly, most things always come back to the core, which is what I would say is a leveler across the board, is improving having core stability, because um, distal movement requires proximal stiffness. So what I mean by that is if the axial part of your body, if the inside of your body is all nice and solid and stable, then your appendicular, your arms and legs can move nice and freely and powerful and move like pistons. That can be crossed over into anything, whether that's you lifting the baby out of the car as a new mother, or whether that's you flying up the stairs, as you mentioned before, or rolling over fields with hay bales, or going through and kicking a door down and clearing a room in the military. Everything is attached. It's a linked system and it's all linked through the core. So that's my leveler in what I do that. But everything else, whether that's discal muscles or whether that's someone who needs to go and do the hay bales, is done through understanding the aim, understanding the requirements within that, the muscle groups that are required to go and move those hay bales, and then training accordingly and specifically towards that.
So, what do you do then to assist somebody? Because a lot of times people are great for a few sessions and then they hit the wall. Then they're maybe having a bad day and they think, oh fuck, I can't get that extra rep. I can't get that, rep. I just give up. How do we push that wall back a bit more? Because it's fine when you start the session, but as you're going along, you're maybe struggling. I think you talk in the book and your social media about like there was the army motto of execute, execute, execute. Are there mantras like that? Is there a way that we can kind of rise above the fatigue and actually just keep pushing ourselves through? Or is that just a kind of thing that you have to build that resistance by physical preparedness to build that cognitive ability?
It goes back to the first question: why? Why do you want that extra rep? Why are we doing this? Everything is a reflective position where it's in, on, and for action. That's how we reflect. And it goes back to that first question: why? Why are you here? Remember, this is for you. Remember why we started this shit. The execute, execute, execute is through that's through Navy SEALs. That's what they do before breaching a room. But in regards to that question and people asking those questions, intra-session is always in regards to their question of why they're doing this. And whenever I reflect, it's always, I feel like this because I'm doing that extra rep in order to, and it's always in consideration of the aim. And I will always be there to give you the biggest kick up the arse. I'll tell you when you're great, but I'm your worst nightmare when you ain't getting that rep in. But that all can also come down to inaccurate prescription.